Okay, well, it's 2 on the dot, so I say let's get this party started. Welcome to our user group today on getting to know SugarCRM. I think especially during these times, customer service and customer retention are a big factor for a lot of companies. We want to be assisting our customers as best we can, supporting them, and we also don't want to lose our customers from bad customer service because that's a relationship that's especially important. So we'll get started today with some quick introductions. My name is Deneen. I am the Director of Marketing here at Technology Advisors. We are a consultancy firm out of Chicago. We have 14 years of experience with SugarCRM specifically. We're an elite partner of theirs. Megan, our trainer and business analyst, and Justin, our director of services, are very well versed in the Sugar Solution Suite and have a lot of great insights on the product. So very happy to have them with us today. If throughout the presentation you have any questions, you can go ahead and chat those to us, and I will man those and make sure that Megan and Justin see them, and we'll make sure to get to them before the day is over. Also, just so you know, I will send a follow-up email to this with this recording and the PowerPoint so you can reference everything later. Okay, so I will hand the floor over to Megan and Justin to get us started.
All right, great. Thanks, Deneen. So the agenda for our user group today is to really do a deep dive into all of the different functionality that's available in SugarCRM. May have a wide range of people here. It might be someone who's using Sugar Enterprise or Sugar Cell already and thinking about adding SugarCRM. It may be that you're brand new to Sugar. So we really want to kind of work through the breadth of the different functions that are available. We're going to start with creating a case and talk about different methods that exist for cases getting created in SugarCRM, and then walk through kind of all of the things that happen once a case gets created until it gets closed. So talking about case routing and assignment, managing follow-ups and SLAs, using the service console, using knowledgebase, responding to emails, change timers, resolution timers, doing notifications, and the customer portal. And then for those who maybe this is your first user group that you've attended, we do always wrap up our user groups by talking about what's new in the latest releases of Sugar. So we will close with that as always. So going ahead and diving into case creation, there are a number of different ways that a case can be created within Sugar. So you can create cases through the UI. So maybe I'm a service agent and I'm taking phone calls or responding to emails or in some way getting alerted that there's a new issue that a customer has. I can manually input the details of that case through the user interface. And I'll show you that in a few minutes. There is also functionality to create cases automatically from email. So you can set up Sugar to connect to one or more email mailboxes. And then every time an email comes into that mailbox, it's going to create a new case for it unless it's got a case number in the subject line, in which case it will link it to that existing case. Give you some options for how to route that case to who gets assigned. Justin's going to talk more about that in a few minutes. You can set defaults for key fields using Sugar BPM processes, so automated workflows. And something to think about if you are considering email to case functionality is what you can do to deflect some of the non-case emails that might come into that mailbox, like auto responses, spam emails. A lot of times what we'll see people do is set up some rules in the email system so that it automatically moves some of those messages to another folder or something like that so that they don't get picked up by Sugar and become cases that someone has to close out. Sugar has also just recently in the last few weeks added the new Sugar Live functionality. This is a chat and phone integration capability that uses Amazon Connect, which is a phone and chat service available through Amazon. So you can connect that with your existing phone system, keep your phone numbers the same, and then have it be integrated with Sugar. I don't have that set up yet to demo yet because it is so brand new. I do have a few screenshots that I'll show you in a minute though. Sugar does also have a customer portal. We're going to touch on that towards the end, but basically that means your customers can go in and log into the portal and create cases on their own so that they route to your service team from there. And then Sugar does have the potential to integrate with Facebook or Twitter or any other, sort of source that your customers might be using to talk to you. So before I pull up Sugar, let's just take a look at a couple of these screenshots here from Sugar Live. So again, Sugar Live is the new capability to do chat and or phone integration through this Amazon Connect function. So you have to sign up for Amazon Connect, and there is a fee from Amazon for that service. But then once you have that Amazon Connect service set up, there's no additional fee from Sugar in order to link it to Sugar and have it work within the platform. And basically the way this works is it's just a little pop-up that would happen in Sugar for your phone calls and for your chats. You can, do standard phone functionality like, hold and mute and so on. You can chat right within that Sugar pop-up interface. And then you can also see and update data within Sugar while you're doing that chatting or that phone call. So you can update information if something needs to be added. You can open a new case and so on while you're on that call or that chat. So let me go ahead and bring up Sugar, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up the cases section here. So this is where I would come in to see a list of all of my cases. Hopefully you guys are seeing that now.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm missing the Zoom box for some reason, so I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry, I was muted.
No problem. So this is where I can see a list of all of my cases. I can work through them. I can, more about that as we go. But more importantly, I can create new cases, or more importantly for the moment anyways, I can create new cases from here. I can also pull up an account or a contact and create the case from there. So if I am getting a phone call from, I'll just use myself as an example here, from Megan, I can search for Megan. I just created her, so she may not be in the search index yet. That was poor planning on my part. Normally she'd come up right there. I can then pull up Megan's information. I can confirm that I've got, the right email address for her, maybe get her phone number added to this record so that I can get in touch with her if there's any follow-up. And then I can go ahead and create a new case, and it will pull in information like who the customer is on that. This is going to bring up, sort of a standard Sugar creation page. Like any section within Sugar, you can modify this layout through the administration tools. You can add additional fields. You can remove fields that are not relevant for you. You can move things around in terms of the order that they're in and change default values if you don't want the default priority to be high and so on. So this is going to let me just put in whatever the information is about my case. Put in some notes about the problem. If it's something that I closed immediately on the first call, I could go ahead and set the status to closed right away. Otherwise, maybe I'm just taking the case and it's going to get assigned to somebody else. I could fill in all of this information as needed. I do want to highlight a couple of other fields that are going to become important. Well, one of them at least is going to become important as Justin starts to talk about routing and assignment and follow-up. Sugar has a concept called business centers. So the business centers basically assign your customers into groups of some sort. That could be geographic, that's probably the primary function there, but it could be, functional or other pieces as well. And that's going to be really important for the routing and the functionality for setting follow-ups and SLAs, because this is going to control kind of when different areas are open. So any case can be assigned to a business center. It will automatically assign to the same business center that the customer is assigned to. And so that's where this filled in was from the customer being assigned to that business center. If you have used cases in Sugar before, and maybe you're thinking about, what's new, or maybe upgrading to SugarCRM, something else that's relatively new in the Sugar cases section is this primary contact field. This lets you link this case to a primary person as well as any additional contacts, which has always existed down here at the bottom. So that relationship still is there. It's just kind of an additional setting for who is the main person that I'm working with on this particular case. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to point out about creating a case through the UI. The other thing I did want to demo for you or show you at this point is the email to case function. So this is a case that actually came in from an email I sent in a few minutes ago. You connect this to your inbox. So this is the inbox I'm connected to. It will scan for new emails. It will import the email into Sugar and create a case from it, and then mark the email as read. It does leave it in your inbox, so depending on whether you want them there or not, you could set up some sort of process in your email inbox for deleting those after 24 hours or a week or whatever time period you wanted. It will take the subject of the email and make it the case subject, the body of the email and make it the case description. The case description field doesn't have formatting or image capabilities, which is why you see some of these tokens in here for where I had some images in there. The full email with the images will be available down here in the subpanel. So I can still see the email in its original form with all of that detail in there. If there were some screenshots of someone's problem or something like that, that detail is all available to me. It just isn't compatible with the case description field. So I have to go to the email to see that. And then, as I mentioned briefly, you can set up within your settings, how those cases get routed, what happens with them, once they come in, if there's any default fields you want to assign or anything like that. It will associate it to the correct account based off of the email matching. So if it's a known contact, it will link it to that person and that account. And at that, I think I'm going to go ahead and shift to Justin to talk about how cases get routed and assigned.
Okay, thank you, Megan. With regards to case routing and assignment, there's a number of different things that play into that. There's a couple of newer entities called business centers and business hours. Business centers represent a team responsible for a case. Most often this would be a geographic location simply because you're wanting to set the time zones that they're available, the time in the time zone that they are available. And then even within there, like I just mentioned, there's business hours, and you can also set up holidays and things like shifts and even exceptions to those rules if someone's going on vacation or something else happens to take someone out of rotation. And then based on all of that data, we can use the process definitions, Sugar's advanced workflow engine, to create round robin assignments. And I will demo that right now. So jumping into Sugar, you would find your business centers in your navigation bar, probably under the ellipses button up here, but I've already pulled mine up, business centers. You can see here we have 3 different ones, North America, APAC, and EMEA. Each of them comes with its own time zone. And then if I were to open up one of these, we're going to see the business hours associated with it. This is a standard business, so it would be closed Saturdays and Sundays. And it comes with pretty general 8 to 5 hours, Monday through Friday. Down below, we're going to see what users are associated with this business center, any business holidays that are set up. And then down below, as you'll see in a little bit, or you already saw with Megan's demo, accounts, cases, contacts, and leads can all be associated with business centers. So this is a really slick way to start getting into business hours and when things are open and when things should be happening. And we'll see how we leverage this once we get into process definitions. Before I do that, I want to jump into my shifts module, which is here under the ellipses menu item. So I can click here. We have some shifts that are available. There's a special shift, a weekend shift, a regular work shift. We can take a quick look at the weekend shift here. You can see the start date and the end date for that. And it looks like we will be providing some support, some specific people. We only have 3 in this group for Sundays and Saturdays. And standard hours, 8 to 5. And with that, we want to take a look at how those affect cases that are created. So I've brought up a process definition here. This is an out-of-the-box process definition that comes with SugarServe, case follow-up date management version 2. I'm going to go ahead and click the design button here to bring up that visual designer. And there's two different start points. We have updated open cases that may not already have this process definition running would jump in. But there's also new cases being created that would start it, and this is where we're going to look. So when a new case is created, first we're going to run a business rule to set what the tier level of that support is. Once we've done that, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, etc., we would look at which business center we want to assign it to, whether it's North America or APAC. And you may recall that Megan mentioned that as you're creating cases, that business center is automatically filled out based on the contact or the account you're relating it to. And we'll see that when I demo it as well. So if I take a look at the settings on this, we can see the action type is round robin, and then the more detailed settings, I'm saying I want to select users from the USA team, and I want to update the assigned to. You can then even get into setting assigned to by availability, whether you want them to be available for X hours or minutes before whatever the specified date is. And then if no other users are available, who do you want it to go to? Kind of like an emergency contact. Okay. Before I actually demo this process, I'm going to jump back to my slides here to talk through the rest of that process definition we just looked at. So now in SugarServe, there's a bunch of new fields that have been created. And those fields are populated with a combination of internal sugar code as well as that process definition we just saw. So the nice thing about that is we can modify process definitions as necessary to update and data the way we need it to and want it to. Obviously, the initial follow-up date is set when the case is created, and that gives the users a target. The user, the case becomes assigned to a target date for following up, and that can also drive, as you'll see later in Megan's demo, which cases we should be working on and when. We have a number of other service level agreements or SLAs that are triggered and tracked depending on what happens with the case. We track whether the first response SLA was met. We track what the target time was. We record what the actual time of the first response was. We track who did that first response, and we can now track business hours. So we're not just tracking overnight hours. We can track business hours between first response and even case resolution. And as we'll see when we look at the process definition in the demo, subsequent actions result in updating the follow-up date, such as when you receive an email, when the status changes, and if no response occurs. So let's take a quick look at that. I'm going to open up my contact, Justin Kielthau here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new case so we can see the process running through. We'll just say an update. I'm going to go ahead and save this without filling anything else in. Click on my new case. And you'll notice that the business center name is automatically filled into North America because of the account technology advisors. We have an automated follow-up date, which is just a couple hours in the future. That's based on priority and tier of the account that we're looking at. And if I come over to SLAs, none of this is filled in yet because we haven't done anything yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I've got this case. It's now assigned to Sarah Smith. Let's go ahead and change it to assign. I can go ahead and save that. And as we go through, you'll notice now we have some data that's been set in here. First response sent, yes. That happened when we changed the status field. The hours to the first response was 0.01 hours. The first response target was 519, I think. And we actually got it at 220. The first response user was that Sarah Smith, the person assigned to the case. This first response variance, we beat it by 3.99 hours, which is great. And here our business hours to first response is 0.01 again. And those match because we didn't go overnight. As we'll look at in a little bit, those things can be different. And was the SLA met? Yes. So then as I continue moving on, I could take this to a closed status and save that. And now we're going to see our SLAs update even more. Business hours to resolution, 0.03 hours. Resolve date was tracked, and hours to resolution is tracked. And let's go ahead and walk through that here. I'm opening up the processes tab here, and I am going to come to process management. And I can see here I had that cases follow-up date management version 2 process run against my need an update case, and it's completed because it's a closed case. And if I click the plus sign here, I can see what route that took. So it came in here, it got round robin to North America. We can provide case details to the new owner. In this case, that was Sarah. Here we monitor, does the SLA change? Did we reach the follow-up date? In that case, we would have set SLA met to no, and we would have notified the person's manager. But this branch was skipped because we did update the status to assigned. So that first response was set. And then we came down here, and once that was set, we actually know we're awaiting input from the client. So we would continue to monitor for that. And if they did send, if the status changed again, we would continue through there. And we can even monitor for an inbound email being received and change the status to, now we know it's assigned to us. It's not waiting for external input. So we can go through all of that. And then finally, if it waits through all of these, it'll eventually close the case after sending some warnings. So let's look at what those could look like. If I jump into my Outlook, I created a new case yesterday. This is actually coming out of our production environment. This was a case I created yesterday, and it's emailing the support team information about the case. So that was that provide case details to the new owner. And then here's what that notification for the valued customer, having not sent a response in, we're reminding them that they need to do something with this case. I did want to jump back in here to my business card. Actually, I'm going to come down here to Mr. Justin Keelth now and take a look at another case I have open. We have our system down case that's pending input. You'll notice some of these SLAs look a little different. The first response SLA was not met because it was over and it's not resolved yet. So we're not doing as well on this case. Let's jump back to our PowerPoint. Megan, you're going to take us through using and configuring the service console.
Yes. And while I'm switching back here to my screen, just want to point out a couple of other things. I think one of the great things about the fact that that entire process is managed through Sugar BPM, through that process definitions setup, is that means you can change all of that. So if you want the logic to be different at any step in that process, all you have to do is go into that process definition and make those changes. And it's got quite a bit of flexibility in there. So we've seen customers who, want to make changes to one part or another, or even the entire process. And you can do that without needing to do any development, without needing to write any code, just by going into that process definition and updating those settings. And we're going to see the same thing is true in the service console, which is what I'm going to walk through next. So the service console is a configurable dashboard really designed for the service agents who are working the cases. So this is a sort of a custom dashboard view that Sugar's created for SugarServe. But again, it's configurable so that you can still adapt it to your own needs, your own processes. We'll pull this up in Sugar in a second, but just to do a quick walkthrough first, we're going to see that there's two tabs on the service console. There's an overview tab that's going to show you some key metrics. And then there's a cases tab, which is really probably where the agent's going to spend most of their time working their cases. So kind of seeing the big picture and then really getting into the nitty gritty detail and working my cases. Both of those have quite a bit of configurability, as you can see listed here. You can add things, you can remove things, you can change sorting. So quite a bit of flexibility to make this, really work for your business. So here's my service console. I got there just by clicking the Sugar logo here to go to my homepage. And here I can see those two different tabs that are listed here. I have a variety of different things on my overview tab, different charts, so I can see, maybe some information about my cases, what are my cases that I'm working on, what are some things that I need to get done, as well as, see how many cases does everyone have open right now. Is, maybe Andy's a little bit overwhelmed. If I'm not too busy, I could reach out to him and say, hey, do you need help with anything? If I was a manager, maybe some of these views like that would also be really important and helpful to me. This tab is standard dashboard functionality within Sugar, other than the fact that it's sort of embedded in this tab. So if I wanted to remove things from this dashboard or move things around or add more things, it uses the standard dashboard functionality in Sugar. So if you're familiar with that at all, it's the same set of functions that are available. You can add dashlets from a wide variety of different dashlet types. You can build your own lists of information. You can pull in any report that has a chart in it to show the chart. So if there's some other view, some other report that I want to see, I can create that report or pull that report from my list of options and add that to my dashboard very easily. I can then resize it to the appropriate size that I want, move it around within this view if I want it somewhere else, and so on. I should probably mention I can do that because I'm logged in as the administrator. So only the system admin has the capability to modify this shared service console dashboard because it is changing it for everybody. Individual users can create their own custom dashboards, but they can't modify this service console dashboard. And then the cases tab, again, this is where a service agent is probably going to spend most of their time. This is where they're going to see the list of their cases and be able to work through them. So as the admin, I only have a couple of cases assigned to me. There is some filtering being applied so that I'm only seeing my own cases and only open cases. Again, that's something you can modify through the administrator tools. So if I wanted to change anything about this setup on this list page, I can go into my edit module tabs action here, and I can change the sorting that it's using. So by default, it's sorting based off of that follow-up date that was set through that process that Justin showed you, so that the top of the list is the cases that most need my attention first, the ones that are closest to or past their follow-up date. If I wanted a secondary sort, I can set a secondary sort, or if I didn't want to use the follow-up date, I want to sort by something else, I could do that as well. I can change the filtering. So maybe I have some custom case statuses that I've set up in my Sugar. And so, the statuses that I need to filter in or out are different. Or maybe I want to, only focus on certain types of cases on my service console or whatever the case might be. I can, modify or add additional filters here as needed. And then finally, I can change the columns that are shown in the list view. And this is a preview of that. I change the columns over here on the right. So if there's other fields that I want to add, I can drag and drop those out to add them as a new column. And I can even create groups of columns that show together, like you're seeing with a couple of the columns here. So I can see the priority and status have been grouped in order to make it so that I can show a little bit more data without having to scroll to the right to see it. So maybe I want to take that type field and group it in with Business Center into a single column. I could go ahead and I can do that as well. So really quick and easy, just drag and drop functions to make those changes. And once I do that, it will go ahead and save those changes. It's reloading the page, as you can see here. Should not actually take this long, but there it goes. Okay. And it's applying those changes again to everybody. Again, the reason I can do that is because I'm logged in as the administrator. So there's my new combined column showing the business center and the type. And then once my list is set up, then I can click on an individual case to work on that case. And so again, thinking as the service user, I'm coming in here, I'm seeing key information about my case. I can update this data directly from here. So if I'm ready to change the status or if I need to put some notes in, I can go ahead and I can put those in here. I can use the comment log to put in some time-stamped notes about what's happening with the case. It will log automatically who created those notes and when, so that I can see a running history of the case. And I can even see connected information. So this is set up by default to show me information about the customer right here on this screen as well. So I can see all of that information and even update that information as well if I find out something's changed. This view is also flexible. So this can also all be configured by the administrator. I can add other dashlets to this view if I wanted to maybe be able to search the knowledge base from here. I can go ahead and add the knowledge base search dashlet. Again, I can resize that if I don't want it to take the full screen, or if I want lots of space to read it, I could leave it kind of full screen there. If I don't want to use one of these functions, I can remove something that's not necessary. I can select which modules are displayed as tabs in these dashlets here. So this is showing me not only the case, but also the related tasks, the related contacts, the related documents for that case. Maybe there's something else I want to show in that view. I can go ahead and edit, and I could say I also want to show the notes on this case, let's say. And I can go ahead and I can add that into my view, and it will pull in a new tab to show the notes. And then I can also decide which fields show on the main tab. So if I wanted to show different fields on this case view here, then maybe the full screen case view that we were seeing earlier when Justin and I were working with cases and creating cases. This is set up through Studio, which is the tool that manages all of the page layouts within Sugar. And so there is a page layout for the record view dashlet, which is that view we were looking at. And so I can set different fields, different layouts for this particular view if for whatever reason I want that. And I can do that with any module. So if I wanted something different on the accounts view here instead of the standard account layout, I could set that up as well. So again, just really a lot of flexibility to help you make this a page that will really help your users to be able to do their jobs. And I added this to my page there. There is knowledge base capabilities within Sugar where you can build up a knowledge base with answers to frequent or repeated questions and issues. So things that come up, you can document what the steps are to resolve them, make it easy to, pass that information along in the relevant situation. Sugar has a variety of functions for helping you manage your knowledge base. So you can create articles for your knowledge base from a case. So if you've already put in a detail of the description of the problem and what the steps are to resolve, you don't have to retype it all to create it into a knowledge base article. If you want to do some sort of approval process where maybe agents can create articles but not publish them, it's got capabilities set up in there for that. And then you can share articles with your customers through the customer portal so that they can do some self-help, maybe even some case deflection, oh, this is the steps to solve my problem before I even create a case. So I never even got to the point of, taking up time from a service agent, and I've already got my problem solved. For your service agents who are working within Sugar, they can use that knowledge base dashlet that I just added to my page to search within the knowledge base while working on a case. It could be from that service console, it could be from the case view. Either way, it's going to give me the ability to search either by keyword, so I could type a word in here and see relevant articles. Or I can browse by topic. So you can set up what these categories are, and I could go into a specific category and see a list of all of the help articles in that category. And they do support like subcategories as well, if that's something that you would want in order to, keep your data organized. All right, I have touched on everything that I'm going to cover there. So Justin, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Great, thank you, Megan. Okay, I will be talking about responding to emails within Sugar. Sugar does have functionality for composing emails and sending them out of Sugar. That's really nice because those emails are then automatically recorded to cases when using SugarServe. In addition, it automatically appends the case number to the case subject. So if you are using that inbound email tracking with a common email address like support@techgatev.com, it will automatically record any replies to that to the case that you're currently working on. So we'll take a very quick look at how we can send emails out of Sugar. So I have a case here that's already open. I created a case via email for use in the Sugar user group. It's a standard case. Coming down here, I can see all of the different emails. Here I can open up the original one, as Megan showed earlier, in order to see all of the information about it. In this case, I can come up here and just quickly click reply. So here you can see, again, I have the case subject here, or the ID in the case. So if I were to send this email or CC support@techgatev.com on it, and they reply all to it, then it would get recorded to the case for me. Or I can simply come in here and you can set up multiple email addresses you can send from. In this case, I've set up support@techgatev.com as one I can send as. And I could say, this should be resolved. Please confirm. And then this is going to go out to me because I'm the contact that is related to this case. So now I've successfully sent that email. And if I come back to my case here, and scroll down, you can see now I have this email from Justin Kielthau, and I can preview it within my case to see this should be resolved. Please confirm. And then if I come into Outlook, I have that email that came in. This should be resolved. Please confirm. If I'm sending it as support@techgatev.com, it goes into support@techgatev.com's sent items. If I were to send it using my own account, it would show up in my own sent items. So it really does a really good job of integrating with Outlook or Gmail or whatever your service provider is, and does a great job of getting that data back. And then again, if I reply to this, it's going to, as the customer, go to my support email address. It's going to have this case tag in there, and that email will eventually be tagged to the case. Okay, and then one last thing we wanted to look at are our change and resolution timers. There is, under cases, you may have noticed it already on my demo or Megan's demo, there's a change timers subpanel, and this tracks how long a case spends in each status and who the case is assigned to and how long it's been assigned to each person. So let's take a quick look at that. Here's a case I opened yesterday in our demo environment. Down here we have many change timers. The status went to pending input, and it was there for, actually it was created in that status, and it was there for 366 business hours, or 1,363 hours. So you can see how big of a difference business hours versus standard hours goes. And that tracks to the same assigned to, because at that point, it was a very old case. We reassigned it to Sarah. It was assigned to her for 0 business hours, but 7.82 regular hours. And then it was, the status was changed to assigned, and it was reassigned to Jim. And if I were to come back up here and Jim says, okay, I took care of that, let's push it back to Sarah. and now it's pending input from the customer, and I save that. We're going to see some new items showing up in our change timers. And we're also seeing how long we have been in our different business hours. And you'll notice we have 0 business hours. Well, that's a little strange. It's because this account is in APAC. So it's outside of the North American business hours, which is what we're in right now. Okay. One of the things you can do with this is create process definitions and reports that will track how long cases are open. You could create process definitions that update a certain drop-down field. For example, you could have a report that shows you a graph of all of your reports that are 3 to 5 days old, 5 to 10 days old, and 10 plus days old. So you can get into a lot of cool reporting in time-aware reporting with change timers and the process definitions, all within SugarCRM.
Justin already showed a little bit of this as well, but you can also use Sugar BPM to send notifications for key events within a case lifecycle. So Sugar provides you with a couple of default process definitions that you can use to help get started with this. You're certainly not limited to using these. Again, you can change these as needed. You can turn them off or on as needed. But you can do things like, if a case status is changed and the trigger for that wasn't that a customer sent an email, then we want to notify the customer that the case status was changed and, maybe send them an email with some information about that. Or maybe we get a new note on a case, and so we check to see in this example whether or not that note was created by a customer using the customer portal, or whether it was created by one of our service agents. And then based off of whether or not the case was created by a service agent, then we want to notify the customer. If the case was created by the customer, we want to notify the service agent. And so you do have the capability to do some of that branching logic in here to really define exactly what those triggers should be when you want to notify your customer, when you want to notify someone internally, or both. You could copy the service agent on the customer emails, for example, if you wanted to do that. And you can also, set what's included in those email templates so that you're really making sure you send the message that you want to send at that point.
All right, speaking of notes created in the customer portal and notifications, let's take a quick look at the customer portal. Sugar recently renovated their customer portal, and I know they've got a lot on the roadmap for it as well, but it already has some really cool functionality in it. It has case deflection. When customers are trying to create a case, it'll pop up knowledge base articles saying, are you sure you don't want to look at this knowledge base? That might fix your issue. And then, of course, if that doesn't work for them, they can, of course, create a case and then even attach notes to cases. They can search the knowledge base. If you want them to, they can review bugs. And then there are configurations for case deflection, the modules that are shown in the portal, logos, themes, and then layouts. So let's take a quick look at the portal here. This is the home screen of the portal. It looks relatively similar to SugarCRM itself. There are 3 dashboards down here, all open cases, and it's only showing cases that are related to the account that the contact is a member of. We have some recently resolved cases here, and then our knowledge base I can kind of take a look through and see what's going on there. Across the top of the screen, we have a navigation bar similar to Sugar, where we have cases where we can create and view bugs and the knowledge base. I'm going to go ahead and just start up here and just type in browser won't. And it didn't find anything, but if I'm just typing in browser, it gets a ton of stuff. Clearing the browser cache, accessing Sugar from a mobile device, reordering subpanels, and I could click on one of these and go review it. If I continue typing what I had typed before, browser won't load. It'll say, we didn't find anything, you want to go ahead and create a case? Yes, let's please do that. And I can create a case here. I can add a description. Go ahead and save that. And then that gets created as a new case. I can come into my cases list view here and see all of my different cases with my different statuses. I can click on browser won't load. You'll notice now I can no longer edit this, but I can add a note. And if your customer adds a note, you certainly want to get a notification. You don't want it just sitting out there without anyone noticing. So that's what that process definition that Megan showed would be used for. And it's got all the same functionality SugarCRM does with the preview panel and sub panels here. So some really good stuff we have going on there. I can click into bugs, and again, I'll show you in just a little bit how you can hide this if you don't want your users being able to view bugs in the system. Of course, bugs can be marked as internal and external if you only want some appearing. And they can even go into the knowledge base here and look for things such as anything that has browser. Here we see clearing the browser cache. And we can also explore via tree view to get our full nice WYSIWYG editor knowledge base with embedded images that is showing us exactly the things we want to see. So if I were to come back into Sugar here in the administration section of Sugar, there is a thing called Sugar Portal. If I click on this, we get those options I had previously mentioned. We can configure the portal. Do we want it enabled at all? Yes or no. Do we want to enable search before opening a case? That's that case deflection. And again, you can hide bugs if you don't want that showing up. You can change your logos. You can provide some contact information. You can do a little bit of theming with colors for your portal. And then again, you can do some layouts just like you're normally doing in the studio for record view and list view. Okay.
So it looks like that is wrapping up our presentation on SugarServe. I don't see any questions, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll be sure to answer those. Like I said, when we went through the agenda, we do like to wrap up by talking about what's new within Sugar. It's been a little while since we did this. So we actually have a couple of major releases or cloud releases anyways to talk about. And so I'm not going to necessarily read everything on the slide here, but I'll try to highlight key things. The Sugar Q3 release, the 10.1 release came out about 3 months ago. There were quite a few different, enhancements in this version. You have new options for system email templates being modified, so you can change the messaging on those internal emails. The ability to do clickable hyperlinks and text area fields. Some changes for quoting and sales around how the revenue line items are managed. Specifically the ability to mass update revenue line items from the opportunity level, which is super helpful. More configurability for the revenue line item subpanel that shows up when you're creating opportunities, some new options for discounting and quantities. And this was when the shift and shift exceptions modules that Justin had mentioned for managing employee availability were added. The other big thing that was added for sell and serve in this release was a new set of modules called purchases and purchase line items. These are primarily used for managing subscription-like services that you might be selling customers that have sort of a start and an end date, or really any customer purchases, I guess, but really allowing you to see exactly what someone's purchased, when they've purchased it, and it generates that data automatically based off of your closed won revenue line items. So kind of being able to better distinguish between what was quoted to somebody or discussed with somebody versus what did they actually purchase. And that does drive a few functions around renewals and active subscriptions for service or duration-based products. And then, whoops, that's Justin's slide. Justin, can you go to the next slide? tried to advance the slides on my screen. That didn't work so well. The Q4 release, which came out a few weeks ago, is the latest cloud release. So if you haven't already been updated to 10.2 and you're in Sugar Cloud, expect to see that notification coming soon. There were some dashboard changes, which you saw a little bit in the demo today, where you can more flexibly resize dashboards with that drag and drop functionality. Some changes for audit logs, the ability to audit activities and have some more descriptive source information logged. The ability to configure the columns on a subpanel per user, like you can do already with the list views. So if you want to change the order or the width or which fields are displayed in a subpanel, any user can now make those changes for themselves, as well as obviously the administrator settings that give them some flexibility on options there. Some new administrator settings for auto increment fields and conditionally required fields. Big one that we're going to talk more about in a minute is some changes for email connectors related to email security. Some improvements for Sugar Identity, the ability for a user to change their password, the ability for a system administrator to do mass updates through importing, and easier access to that information for the admin. Some sales changes, the ability to create multiple quotes for one revenue line item, so you can quote in different quantities, different discounts, and have some different options that you're presenting to a customer. Improvements for those renewable, those time-based revenue line items, specifically around add-ons. So probably most applicable to someone in the software or SaaS industries, but the ability to do coterminous add-ons where all of the add-on services or seats expire at the same time as the kind of initial purchase, and automatically calculating pricing and things based off of that. And then, of course, Sugar Live, we talked about already, with a new messages module to store that information, for that ability to do the chat and phone integration for SugarServe.
We do have a new release here it was in the cloud, but they patched all of those. But if you're on premise, you do need to install 10.0.2, which was a security patch. It allowed any authenticated end users, fixed a number of vulnerabilities that an authenticated user, so someone who's already logged in either as an end user or an admin, could cause some arbitrary code to be executed.
And then besides the core product, there have been a number of other releases. So there's been a variety of mobile releases in the last 3 to 6 months, enhancements for quoting on mobile, support for new modules. And then I think the big one here, at least in my opinion, is this one here, which is you can now create, edit, and save custom filters while you're on mobile. So you've long had the ability to use your saved filters, but now you can actually create them from mobile as well. And then in terms of add-on products, Sugar Connect has had some improvements, categorization, some sync changes, adding dark mode. One key note for that is if you were using CollapseBot Classic, which is sort of a precursor to Sugar Connect, you are required to migrate off of that by November 16th. You should have been notified of that already by Sugar if that impacts you. Hint has had some improvements. Most notably, there's an autofill function now when you are creating accounts where it will automatically pop up suggestions as you're typing and then pre-fill the hint fields when you have selected an appropriate account. You can also now configure which fields hint enriches. So if you've got custom fields that maybe go along with some of the hint data, rather than having to have 2 fields for it, one for hint and one for your data, you can now put them together into a single field. And then Customer Journey has also had a ton of updates recently. I picked a few of them to highlight here. Some changes in terms of some new options for when things reset or when things are set in terms of due dates, assignments, automatically starting another journey based on completing a step or activity within the journey. Pre-populating values in custom fields for your activities, as well as the ability to automatically create or update related records. So basically giving it some mini workflow capabilities. Rather than having to use both Sugar BPM and Customer Journey in conjunction, you can actually just do some of those things directly inside Customer Journey now, which is nice. And then here's that email configuration change that I mentioned. So this is something that kind of the two major email providers, Microsoft and Google, are both making changes to make email more secure. So essentially, Sugar has used an older version of email security that Microsoft and Google both allowed for a long period of time. Microsoft and Google are now updating to say you must use the more modern OAuth 2 email security connection information. Originally, they were going to enforce that by June. They've delayed that because of COVID-19, but once you are on version 10.2, you'll have the options within Sugar that you need in order to support that change. So our recommendation would be, once you're updated to 10.2, go ahead and get this set up right away so that you're ready. Whenever Microsoft and Google say, hey, it's time, we're going to start enforcing this, you'll already be ready and set up for that. There is a new setting you have to go through in order to use those OAuth 2 connections. The setting itself isn't new, the application to email is new. And this is the admin connectors setting. So maybe you've seen that before on the admin tools, maybe you've never looked at it because it wasn't used for too much up until this point. You need to go into admin connectors and set up connector properties in order to set up either the Google or the Microsoft connector. And then you have to have the appropriate security in Google or Microsoft in order to be able to do that setup correctly. So that'll be your first step in terms of switching to the new email connection capabilities. Once you have that connector set up, then you'll go into the normal email setup screens within Sugar for outbound or inbound email, and you'll have the option to use your Google or Microsoft connection that you've set up there under connectors. Sugar does have some detailed instructions for this within the email settings, within the connector settings. So, there's detailed step-by-step instructions available for how to make those connections.
We have here just an announcement that Sugar made recently. They had purchased a company called Node that does AI or artificial intelligence. It's a really cool acquisition. They are working on kind of merging the teams right at this point, but they're saying by the end of this year, we're going to start seeing some enhancements to the core product with AI. So we're talking about things like top prospect recommendations, lead conversion and win rate predictions, customer health and churn or renewal predictions, technical account management analysis and territory development, personalized per rep lead routing. So a lot of really cool AI-driven functionality they want to roll out as part of the core offerings. And then also in the future down the line, some enhanced premium items that they could add on to Sugar. And this really fits in well with their other pillars. They've always had time aware. We were seeing that with the SugarServe case timers with SLAs, and how long things have been in different statuses and when they changed, data enrichment with Hint, and delivering wherever you need, mobile, on the web. And now you pair that with AI, and I think it's really a powerful combination for the future, and I'm pretty excited about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know about that update. That's pretty cool. Thank you to Justin and Megan. Thank you to everyone who's with us today. Again, I will send out this information. If you have any follow-up questions, if you need help, if you want to get on SugarServe, if you want to upgrade your current system, reach out to us. In that email, you can simply respond to that email. I will also put some contact information in there so that you can reach out to us individually if you have a specific question, maybe something that's more suited to Megan and Justin than it is to me. So I hope everybody's staying safe. Have a lovely rest of your week, and thank you for joining us today.